Hello, welcome once more to the cellar, and for the over 100 of you who've now subscribed, wow, genuinely humbled people want to watch my hobby as this grows. Anyway, this is Leopard Street. In this episode, I get a paintbrush wet, play with a bit of super glue, point at some track work, then glue it to the board, and show off a bit more wiring before finally running a new train and playing trains for a little bit. So to begin with, a bit of painting. This is the end of board A. This is where the incline tracks end. As you can see, what we have here is some black XPS foam, bit of cork that needs painting. Pan back down here, this is the rest of the incline, which is basically what I've been working on this week. Slightly different colours of grey, one's a match bottom, one isn't. Bit of plastic over the rail join, and basically the rest of it now needs to get painted. So what we do is we grab a little bit of paint, and the paint used is this. That's obviously Wicks, just a basic slate grey paint colour. And what I need to do now is apply this. So this will cover over the cork here, it'll cover over the black XPS, which is just this stuff here, which I've applied over the plywood. Stuck down with copied X, very simple. This is also from Wicks, just XPS flooring underlay, I think it is. There's a whole load of it dumped back there still that needs to be got rid of. There's some 20mm wide, 3mm thick cork strip. 20mm wide gives you a nice centre line to follow, and it follows the curves a bit more easily. This is stuck down simply with a bit of copied X. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stick this last length of track onto here. This will be going on later in the video. There won't be a piece going on in the back, so when I measured it up it didn't actually fit. So let's get on and put a bit of paint down. It's quite simple. As I say, this is just basic household emulsion. It says give it a stir. Yeah, give it a bit of a shake. So open this up using a handy bradawl. Other types of screwdriver and other things are available. Try not to get too many of the drips everywhere. At the moment it's doesn't really matter too much. And then it's just a bog standard household paintbrush, and on it goes. This is quite a thick coat. I'm trying to get this to cover in one coat, which it will do, and obviously cork has a nice bit of texture to it, so this needs to thick enough it'll soak into that texture and cover it up completely. Here I'm going to be painting virtually all of this. There, the very end I'll be leaving plain, because it just makes it easy to cut it and stick down the adjoining piece when I come back to it later. This stuff takes a couple of hours to dry. This is down in the cellar. There is a dehumidifier down here, which is running pretty much all the time. But essentially this stuff is, the way I tend to do this is put one coat down and come back the following day, and then it should be done. So this goes down here. We'll be adding another colour shortly, although obviously I want to let this dry first. So there we go. That's as far as I'm going with the grey. So as you can see, there's a little bit left at the end. There's a little bit of a border down the inside. Just go clean the brush. And now we're back with the following evening. The grey has dried, which has come out quite nicely. What's left to do now is paint the inside edge of this, which will cover up the black XPS and the cork using this stuff, which is just dirt cheap hobby acrylic paint. This is from, I think I got this one from the range, but there's plenty of places that do this. This is a little bit thinner than the brown emulsion. Emulsion would probably be better, but frankly this was about £1.50 a bottle, so I'm not too bothered. It's a bit awkward to get the thing out. And you could put this onto a pallet. In practice, what I tend to do is squirt a sausage of this along the edge of the board. Just do a little section like that. Then it's grab a paintbrush and paint it in. This area will eventually have retaining walls and similar added to it. As you can see, the state of the wall. Oh, I do hope this pans around. There we go. There we are. You can see it now. Yeah, same brush as I was using before, obviously cleaned and left to dry. This just gets painted over. There will be retaining walls here. I'm not quite sure how far up to this the wall at the front it'll be ballasted. This is really just a very short-term cosmetic measure. just really to hide the XPS and the plywood and stop it looking quite so wretched. Yep, carry on with this. This goes down this area here and then all the way down the rest of the incline, and again gets left to dry. So I'll speed that up and we'll be back in a mo. Next up, some things are slightly out of order. As you can see, the brown paint isn't here. This is the board join. There's a line drawn across here. What this needs is some PCB sleepers adding in the same way the track immediately behind it's got. So what we do is stick some super glue down, and on top of this I'm going to glue some sleepers. These are from DCC Concepts. I think these are the 1.6mm thick. They go on roughly centre lined. The trick is to make sure there isn't one directly over the board join, but there's one fairly close either side of it. Straight track like this, I just stick 3 down either side of the join, so 6 in total. There's a marvel at my ability there with maths, as some people will know I do have the odd blind spot with that. These go down. This is really just very, very cheap super glue. I get this stuff from Amazon in bulk. Use it for all sorts of little tricks. But this goes down. This actually, as you can tell, went down, I say, before the paint was done, and I actually did the paint while the glue on this was curing. Works quite nicely. Track gets soldered to these. This is obviously glued, and then it holds the ends. If this was actually a layout that was going to be taken apart and put back together on a much more regular basis, I'd probably be looking at something slightly more robust. It seems to be working so far. The trick is cutting the track accurately, which is something I've had a few problems with. And there may well be a few areas of this that get lifted and relayed eventually. But yeah, this goes down, and then it's a case of finding something else to do while this glue cures, because you can't stick anything to the track until it's cured. And I'd say when they're all down, I'll just basically put a little bit of excess glue down in between the sleepers. Yeah, it soaks in, soaks underneath, and yeah, but I've not had one come off yet, so there we go. And next up, what we have to do now is lay some more track. So it's going to go from this little section here. This is part of board B. I just want to make sure board B is complete. So I'm going to run a length. It'll go around to just about the start of that curve. I'm not relaying the rear board. Board A, the incline, I'm going to leave the ends of it unlaid for now until I get around to doing some more. So first thing to do is take some track. This is the more of the Code 75 Flexi track, which, if only I'd thought to tilt the camera slightly more, you'd be able to see what I'm actually doing here. This is just laying the track out. I'm trying to work out where I need to cut this and where I need to bend it. So this goes down. Don't need to do too much more to it. Position at the ends there. So yeah, it's going to go there. I'm going to leave the last 4 or 5 inches of that unglued, which will make doing the curve easier later. So we pan around that a little bit more. Yes, I'm still getting used to the camera. Next thing that needs to be done is I need to mark out where the power feeds for this are going to go. Obviously later I will also need to remove some of those sleepers. So go and grab the pen. What I want is sort of halfway between these 2 points, roughly halfway anyway, is where the power feed's going to go. That'll get it clear of anything under the board, and it also means it's not too near the join with the other section of rail or the sleepered section. I need to remove wherever the board join when it comes to actually installing this. Pan around here. This side here is obviously going to need another power feed. It's going to be roughly the same sort of distance from the board join. So the trick is find a little gap in the sleeper webbing and just mark it. This is a lot easier to do on straight track. Doing this on curved track is a nightmare for trying to get it all to line up. If you see close-ups of the track on the curves where there are power feeds, you'll see some of the sleepers are a bit distorted, but there we go. So these just get marked up both sides. The next section of this is going to be a series of still photos. This camera does not work very well up close, so instead of inflicting a lot of blurred footage on you, I'm just going to go through various stills about how we're actually going to do this. So yeah, over to that. Yeah, so here we have the basic tools needed here. This is 2 reels of 1602 wire. I use brown and blue for DCC feeds. You can use any colours you like really, as long as you're consistent. And then a pair of cutters to chop that wire, and the piece of track which I marked up a minute ago. Yeah, next, to get ready for the soldering, what needs to happen here is the little nubs highlighted, as in the webbing joints, need to be removed. It's easily done just with a pair of cutters or a knife. This will leave a little gap that can then be soldered. And this is what it looks like after the nubs have been removed. This creates a little bit of space to stick a wire onto each rail. The wire bit will point inwards, so they will go down under beneath the track. And yeah, ready to go. So cutting 4 lengths of wire. These are about 10 to 12 inches long, doesn't have to be too exact. Obviously, if you're going to wire these straight back to a circuit panel, you need to make sure the length is long enough. Here, these are just going to little terminal blocks which will be under the board, so this is plenty. And this is what we have after stripping about a centimetre off the end, twisting the wires together, then bending the end 5mm or so into an L shape. This now needs tinning, so what we're going to do is add a bit of solder flux. This is the flux I use. I just got this cheaply off eBay. Point behind the flux is this deoxidizes and cleans up the metal. It just helps the solder flow in. Also, we use the same stuff when I'm soldering to the rails. And here we have the 4 wires after being tinned. Worth noting, I've actually applied probably more solder than you would normally do for tinning wires here. The intention is I will have solder on the wire, I will have solder under the rail, and then to actually attach it, all I'm going to have to do is touch a slightly wet soldering iron to the top, and there'll be enough solder there to join it, avoiding the usual instruction that starts something like, with your third hand add some solder. Yeah, next, little bit of flux goes onto the bottom of the rail, a little bit of solder is attached to the bottom. This is where having a decent sized head on the soldering iron works. This carries a bit of heat, and yeah, it's hold it on for a second or two, add the solder, wipe the iron slightly side to side, then remove it, and you should get a nice little blob. And after just doing the aforementioned with the soldering iron, this is what it looks like. Put the iron away, let it cool for a few seconds, give the wire a little tug just to make sure it's stuck on. If it has, done, move on to the next one. As you can see here, you do sometimes get a little bit of damage to the sleepers from the heat of the soldering iron. Best to try and minimise it if you can, but at this point this is all going to be on the underneath, so it won't be seen anyway, so I'm not too bothered. And then here we are back at the layout. We've got the wires soldered in at both ends, so the next thing to do is mark out exactly where these are going to go, so I can drill the holes for them. So here we are just going to have to mark this out, which means finding the pen. And this is the one of the many tales of the railway. It doesn't matter where I put pen, I can't find it 5 seconds later. So as we wander around and get that, this is obviously just to mark out where the wires go. So the track needs laying down. Get this in slightly the wrong place to start with, so I have to line the ends up. And what I found is this is the easiest way of doing this, is to mark a line across, and then I'm more or less estimating where the other line goes. Slightly inside of the rail gauge is usually how this works, and obviously repeat this at the other end, so scan that round. This doesn't have to be exactly spot on, but it helps. The beauty of having the XPS and the cork is if the hole is slightly off-centered, I can actually just cut some of that away, and then it works. So then what we do is we get the track slightly out of the way, and get the drill with a 3mm drill bit, and I drill a hole for each wire. Now this just gets pushed down through the cork and the XPS, which means it doesn't wander quite so much. Some of the channels I've seen, people drill a single slightly larger 6mm, 8mm hole, whatever, between the rails, and put both wires through it. I just use 2 slightly smaller holes. Both approaches work. This way I find makes slightly less mess when ballasting. The larger hole allows for slightly more misalignment, so it's pay your money, take your choice. So drill the holes, clean it off a little bit. So just get a bit of a brush and give it a quick blow. I'm aware I'm not a proper YouTube model railway because I don't have a small handheld vacuum cleaner as yet. I probably will get one at some point. Yeah, next the track needs slightly preparing, so what we do is we take a single sleeper off each end, just using a pair of clippers. This makes space for the fish plate. Even though I'm not actually laying another piece of track at the other end, it is easier to do both ends of this before you glue it to anything. And then I need to lay this down, mark this out. I mean, this end here will be on a slight curve, so it's going to get clipped more later anyway. But for now, this will do. And with that done, next up I need to put the fish plates on the existing rails. This being an isolating section, this is going to be a pair of the nylon fish plates stored neatly in one of these little boxes. Got from Amazon, got a fair few of those. Makes it a lot easier than trying to ferret around and find packets. I've still got several packets of fish plates that I don't know where they are. So here we go with a couple of these nylon ones, which very helpfully been clipped just slightly off screen here by Mr. Hamfist. So what I'm going to do, clip off two of these, just take the little moulding lubs off the side of the little bit nylon pieces. These then go onto the end of the track. I find it slightly easier to put them onto the existing rail, mostly because that's glued into place. And therefore, if you're, especially with the metal fish plates, you're having to use a little bit of force, they go on quite nicely. The metal ones I put on using a small tool made of a piece of rail, but to be honest, these nylon ones go on easily enough. Trick I've found is if you're using cutters for track, if you find fish plates aren't going on too well, just have a look at the underside of the rail. Sometimes you get a little bit of a burr down there, which is what's stopping the thing going on. So here we are, the insulated joiners. The red dots marking where the insulated sections are, the yellow dots are where I'm possibly going to put signals eventually, but we shall see. So then feed the wires through the holes. This is now just an alignment check. I'm not actually fitting the track straight away, but what I need to do is make sure it all works. It's all fitted in. Get the same at both ends. This is where a single hole actually comes in handy, because obviously you just shove the wires through the hole. With these two, the one thing you need to do is make sure you get the wires in the right way round. You can probably guess why I know that that's important, but there we go. So they can go in, they just feed through. I like the holes to be slightly stiff. Basically, when I'm putting some ballast around this, what I don't want is it raining water and glue on the board sections below. So these go in, just push down nicely. This one actually fits quite nicely. Sometimes, as I say, I've got the wires are slightly misaligned, and then it's just going at it with a knife, cutting a little bit of the cork. Creates a little bit of space underneath. And there we go, it's pretty much lined up. The ends of the rail are about where I need them to be. Obviously I need to cut a small section of sleeper to go under there, we'll do that in a minute. So now what comes is marking out which of these sleepers need to be removed so that I can fit the PCB sleepers into place. Yes, this is again coming back in with the pen and just marking these out. Always worth marking these things. I've found many times I've just sort of put my thumb on the bit of rail that needs cutting, lifted it to cut it, and when I've put it back, my thumb's moved slightly. So yeah, so these now, you just flick this back, go at it underneath, clip through the webbing and remove those sleepers. This can then later on, these will fit nicely over those silver pads on the sleepers and can be soldered down. So it's just a case of clip through the webbing and then just pull the sleepers off. Taking quite a bit of care with this, otherwise it'll bend and it'll pull more sleepers off than you actually want. And yeah, you're just basically destroying sections of track at that point. But as you can see here, this just slides in, fits over that. And that in many ways is now good to go. The next thing to do is prepare some of the sleepers. So again, I'll just clip this Again, a little bit ham-fisted, sorry for the video quality here. What I want is 2 of these, and I am then going to take a knife. This is slightly off camera, unfortunately. What you need to do then is remove all of the chairs off the top of the sleepers, and then when this joint is stuck down, you've got a pair of sleepers you can just slide underneath it. Weirdly, Pico actually make special sleepers for doing this for the Code 55 rail in N-gauge. They don't do it for others. It would be quite a useful thing if they did, because what you really want is a small depression in the sleeper. But there we go, that's prepared. As you'll see, it's a little bit thinner than it was. Just put this adjacent somewhere so I can find it in a minute. And the next stage is to lift this off and glue the track down into place. Now, following videos by Charlie over at Chadwick Model Railway, I use Copydex, the stinky glue. Brilliant stuff. If you've not tried it, well worth it. A bit more expensive than PVA, but seriously worth it. It's a latex sort of rubbery adhesive. It doesn't dry rock solid. And if you need to remove track later, you just peel it up, but it's not going to come up on its own. You can also dilute this with water and do ballasting with it, which is something I used on my N-gauge layout, which works quite nicely. So here, dolloping this down, up near the PCB sleepers, there's quite a chunk of it, again near the ends. Along in the middle, there's just a bit of glue goes down. It's fairly straightforward. And as I noted earlier, I'm leaving the last few inches of this unglued, so the track will just sort of point straight. Not really that bothered. White glue when it goes on, dries clear, as you can sort of see from the lower level tracks there. This is all glued down with Copydex. I'm absolutely sold on this as a glue. It does stink. It's the one that smells of fish because it's the latex-based adhesive. But it works brilliantly. It also comes off your fingers quite easily. And it dries much faster. This is about 15-20 minutes until this is dry. Unlike sometimes if you try them, you can stick track down using PVA, but you're probably leaving each section overnight. This works out quite nicely because you can stick a length of track down, line the fish plates up, get it all in, find the longer rail first, make sure that one goes in. But once this is down, put some weights on it, come back to it, say half an hour later, and you'll find the track is down, which means you can obviously work on the next bit. Now here with twin tracks, it's relatively straightforward. You lay one piece, lay another piece. By the time you've laid that second piece, the first one's dry. Here I'm using the cutters just to grip the rail and pull them into the sleepers. Sorry, the sleepers into the fish plates. Obviously very important, make sure it's connected to both fish plates, not just one of them. It is remarkably simple to put a piece of track down and come back to it later and find one rail is standing slightly proud because it's actually on top of the fish plate, not inside it. So the next thing to do is run a little bit of rolling stock just over the join. So I'll check the gauge, and these are slightly narrow to normal spacing. It's off by about 1 millimetre or 2. To be honest, this is straight track, it doesn't matter, it'll be opened out again by the time it gets to the curves. So yeah, I'll need to find a suitable victim and validate the joint works, and if all is good, this track then gets a bit of weight put on it and is done. So yeah, you just have a coach just rolling over by hand because obviously none of this is powered. This rolls over smoothly. The lovely little clacking sound. It can clear out of the way, and then we'll drop those spare sleepers in. See these go under here while the glue is still wet. And just push under. It's a cosmetic thing. I mean, obviously they're not holding anything there. It's just, it looks slightly better than having the gap. Again, just sort of roll over. That puts a little bit of a hump in it, and we'll take the coach out of the way and stick some weights on it, and that's it. And that means the incline section on board C and B, and then onto board A, is basically done. The only thing that's left to do here is solder the rails to those sleepers and come at it with a razor saw. I'll do that off camera and I'll just show you that in the next video. But yeah, there we go. So that is a section of track down. Basically it was exactly the same process for all the others. There's about 6 lengths of this track on the incline here. So yeah, pleased with that. And with that weighted, I'll just have a little pan down. We'll show the rest of the incline. So we've got the new section that's in, the rail behind it, and we scan down there. We've got all of that section at the rear is new, down to where those coaches are parked, which is about where the join is. The little white wagon will be the subject of another series of videos. That's a 3D printed open wagon, which isn't perfect, but it's still quite early on in the prototype stage. And the next up is to power all of this sort of track up. Now, as I showed earlier, board C is now wired up and powered. So what we've done here, I've broken out a couple of trains. The Q6 you've seen before, a little Hornby locomotive there with a couple of goods wagons behind it. And yeah, so it's just a short rake here. These are the Hornby railroad range wagons. Yes, I am aware that you wouldn't necessarily have a full rake of identical wagons. You'd have a mix, but for now this is what I've got. And then we have this little beauty, the Hornby D94. This is one of the older versions. I've had to remotor it to get a DCC chip in there. 4 of the old Hornby coaches. This is basically actually the train this will be pulling. And this formed part of the testing on the various incline tracks for can it actually pull the train up there. So let's give it a go and watch. So we've got the 2 of them here on the through track. What I'm going to do is take them both over Leopard Junction past the signal box, down into that area over there, throw the points, bring them back round, and that shows pretty much the extent of the layout that's powered up. They're going to end up on those 2 rear roads on the incline, which is about a 1 in 50 slope. So frankly, if they can cope with that, I'm happy. It shouldn't get much steeper than that. So let's see, and here we go. These are very nice little engines, and let's watch them in action. Now the D94 does have a few problems. It only picks up on 1 rail on 2 tender wheels, the centre wheels having been removed, but they didn't pick up anyway. And the other rail is picked up purely from the locomotive. What this means is there isn't very many pickups on this. I need to go in and add a few more. This is why it's just stopped, and it's the finger of a fool to make it rumble again. Some areas it runs better than others. Yeah, the track's not completely level. So what I need to do is go into this and fit some more pickups, and probably find a space to put a stay alive in. At the moment, the locomotive and the tender still uncouple. They'll end up hardwired because I'll just have feeds going all the way across. I want to get as many wheels picking up as I can. 2 in the tender have got traction tyres on because this is a Hornby locomotive. But there we go. So she rumbles back nice and slowly. The track work is a little bit ropey. I am going to power the whole layout up before I start going around correcting things, as I want to test this. So now we will take the Q6 round as well. It's a lovely little engine, geared remarkably slowly. This one, it's supposed to be a freight engine, but this is set to the same speed step as the D94 was. As you can see, it's barely moving. So speed things up. Again, going relatively slowly here. There are a few places where the track glitches slightly, specifically these curved rail joins over the boards. They're not aligned perfectly, and the gaps are a little bit wider than I'd have liked. I'm going to see how I get on with this. This area may end up having a little bit of work and possibly some track relay later. But she looks lovely with a bit of a train. The freight trains will eventually be longer than that, at least twice that length. They're not going to go up to the station, so they're only really limited by the length of the 2 storage loops they will sit in, which will cope with at least twice that, if not significantly longer. Although what I'm trying to avoid is the slightly ridiculous going into one tunnel while still coming out of the other effect. So yeah, I will now insert this. I'll crawl off, go change the points, and then we're back to run the other way. So here we are with the points reset. Slight pause being I'm standing in the operating well in the centre of the layout here, which is basically because that's where the camera is, and so I can move the camera around. The layout is actually controlled from the PC, which is off to the right here. I've just noticed the cardboard box in the background that's got Alex is good. This is my my youngest, who is learning to use my airbrush when he's in the vicinity. Say youngest, he's actually in the army, and he's significantly bigger than me, so I don't want to annoy him too much. So here we go, a little bit faster with the D94, rumbling over the junction, and this will be the route it would take if it was heading off up to the station, which is probably quite some time away from actually existing. But we rumble through here quite smoothly and stop before we run over onto the next board section, because it's not powered yet. So then we'll go back to the freight loco, and this one has now got the delicate delight of reversing and backing up over the all of this point work. As we'll wait for this one to start, and there we go. A little bit slower, speed it up slowly. These do look rather good. I mean, eventually this is obviously going to be a bit of a back scene behind this area, but there's very little point putting that in until I've got a little bit more scenery down and the rest of the track is done and it's all powered up and tested. This board control circuit is still not 100% reliable, which it needs to be. There's a problem at startup at the moment where it just goes into a bit of a loop, but if you actually just do a hard reset on the thing, it then connects and works perfectly. Every once in a while something trips out as it loses its Wi-Fi connection, so I still need to investigate that. Here we have again the finger of Muppet. This is because the locomotive actually derailed slightly going over the board join. You see, I'm using Wii Throttle here, or rather Wii Throttle Lite. I probably will get the full version eventually. It's just a really, really simple little handset device for this. I may even go to the point of making myself a little handset that can control some of the point work and respond and report some of the feedback, because board C, even though it's not shown here, its block detection circuitry is in and working. And off we go again. Yeah, so it's running as we just go over the point work there. This is essentially a track that needs cleaning. It's the electrical continuity to the rails is working quite nicely. So we come here and again rumble round nice and slowly. Now this one obviously can go a little bit further because we can push the wagons over the board join. And again, this will obviously have a bit of a back scene behind it. Not 100% certain exactly what's going to be on the back scene. That corner is destined to get some buildings, a little bit of town, but it will be down at the level of everything else. So there we stop, and yeah, it's just rumbled nicely over there. Those dots will be where the signal is, so eventually trains like the D94 is will rumble a little bit further forward and be held at a signal if there is another train blocking the station throat. Otherwise they'll just run straight up to the station area. It just allows me to store a few more trains on the layout, and there we go. So yeah, we'll now roll them back down to the storage side of the layout, because quite frankly there's no point having a train set unless you're actually going to run some trains on it. So here we go. I'm just revelling in the fact I've now got the 2.5 end boards worth of track powered up, and hopefully fairly shortly I will have board B powered up as well, and possibly even board A, because neither of them have got any points on, so they should be relatively straightforward to do. Here we rumble round. There's a little bit of a stall at that point. This is essentially, there's a little bit of a dog leg there, and things do tend to derail slightly on the dog leg. So here's the Q6 has just come off slightly there. She does actually cope remarkably well with only half the wheels actually on the rails. But we're going to carry on rumbling down a little bit further, basically just get clear of the board join, and then we'll stop there, move the coaches down, and then we're done for the day. So carry on watching this. So at some point I will get a better camera, zoom in and do some slightly better bits and pieces here, but I've also got a lot of tidying up to do and a whole load more wiring and jobs and jobs and jobs. So there we go. We had a wagon derail as well. These Hornby Railroad wagons are quite light, and they're remarkably good runners, I've found though. So I'll just crawl a little bit further down there just to get round. We'll park that, and then we'll bring the passenger train back, again going a little bit carefully, reversing. It's not too bad on this section here because it's reversing down a hill, so the couplers more or less can cope. Here we go. Is backing up. Sometimes when trying to push trains up the slope, we get a few little problems, but it's nothing serious. It'll all be sorted out in the end. Reliability is going to be key to this layout, so when I do find I have bits of track that are causing problems consistently, I will be sorting it out. As noted here, a lot of the problems on the D94 are its lack of pickups. However, normally when I use the test engines of the Flying Scotsman and the Q6, both of which run slightly better, but I thought this is a nice little engine. I'll bring her out and give her a run and let people see. As the fourth chipped loco I've got is an A2, which hasn't been run in properly yet, so hence why I'm not using that one much. But yeah, all in all, pleased with that. I've got boards C and E powered up, and that's that. Yeah, so here we've got just a quick glance down here at the wiring. There's another one of the Merg DTC8 boards here. Two of the lines have got a lot of slack in them. At some point there are going to be some automatic brake control modules using the asynchronous braking control feature of the Zemo decoders. Hence I've left two of the circuits wires a little bit longer. Basically I can just cut those, re-terminate them into some relay controls to switch that system on and off. So it's not quite as messy as the other board, but there we go. There will also be some relays here, say, controlling those modules. There will be a servo controller because there are going to be some semaphore signals up here. But at the moment all the wiring is just into these little terminal blocks. Could have removed the board to do this. In practice I just sat on the floor and worked on it underneath. This is the block there that will have the 5-volt power circuit connected to it. Could probably put it in the middle actually, but in the end I screwed it onto the end. And next on is board B there with the newly laid piece of track sitting under its weights, down to board A. And frankly, once I've got those powered up, that is a decent length run to power some trains on. Each of these modules is 4 foot in length, so there we go with that. Yeah, all in all, I think this has been a reasonably productive week, and a little bit more track done, and I'm very especially pleased with the wiring. Thank you all for your time watching. Comments welcome, likes, subscriptions, upticks, all the usual YouTube stuff. And I will see you all next week, and we'll see how far we've got then. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching.